Welcome everyone. I'm delighted to welcome Curtis Grajeda, our CEO and founder of LevelUP. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Seeing as you're the boss, I think we have to have you sometimes, so we'll let you come and join us. And today's episode is a really interesting one. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on today is thinking about excellence and operational excellence in TA. I think it's a really interesting thing for you and I to talk about, especially as a partner to many TA leaders and TA organizations looking to deliver that excellence. And we spend every day obsessing about how we can support our customers, help TA leaders and other people within the TA sphere really be excellent at their jobs, including our own teams. I think, if I'm to frame why this is important now, before we kind of jump into the questions, you and I had a conversation earlier about the market pressures. There's extreme pressure towards TA leaders in the current market. They've got to do more with less. The hiring is not declining at a rate where they have the resources or enough resources to manage that. It's fewer recruiters, more roles. There's quality without compromise in the market. We hear this all the time when we're engaging with our TA leaders and HR leaders. The effect of that really popular thing at the moment, AI, that everyone seems to be talking about. Oh, yes, it's a phenomenal thing. But even the wider tech and analytics piece, it's not just AI and AI tools, it's that how the AI is affecting all the other tech and analytics platforms. And then I suppose, couple all of that with the fact that TA leaders now need to be more strategic than operational, and they need to have innovation readiness. Well, that's a lot of things that TA teams to worry about. And I think that's really why we wanted to dive in that conversation today. We want to talk about that operational excellence, the maturity of TA teams. I suppose, any points to add under the pressures that the TA is facing today before we kick off with the questions?
You covered, I think, some of the key themes that we're hearing from our client base as well as the population of potential clients, right? And the pressures aren't going to change. So being able to provide a playbook, or at least at the very least offer some advice to potential leaders out there who are in this current state and have to be able to do more with less, and be able to be strategic without sacrificing the execution on a daily basis is necessary. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Well, thank you. Well, let's kick off with the questions. And I suppose when you think about efficient TA processes, what do you think comes up most in conversations? What are you seeing in the market from an efficiency perspective?
So when you talk about efficiency, most organizations today are going to talk about their metrics, their time tos, the time to hire, the cost per hire, the time to cover. And unfortunately, that puts us right back into being what I'll call tactical and execution focused. So if we really want to talk about efficiencies, we got to get away from the time twos and start to be able to allow the recruiting team to truly partner with the business in a meaningful way where we're actually helping them be able to plan and strategize about future state hiring. So the metrics, the recruiting metrics are there for a reason. It allows the team to have benchmarks to work towards. That again is very much more of a pure tactical play. And if we can start to be able to have conversations around quality, have transparency around what that means to the business, because the business itself typically is going to measure the definition of quality differently than how we measure in TA. And if we can bridge that gap, we can start to have strategic conversations about where the business is going and how we can support those initiatives and goals.
Yeah, and I think that's super interesting, right? Because you can't on one hand be a TA leader who's looking to become more strategic across your function, then dump all the operational transactional on your partners if you really want to truly scale. If you want to achieve this, looking out to partners to help you with the strategic positioning, it's going to be a really crucial part.
Absolutely.
Good. So from a metrics point of view, do you think that's going to change with AI? Do you think anything's going to change kind of metrics and reporting?
So I think AI is going to help you able to accentuate the metrics to actually tell a story and be able to say, okay, here's what the data is saying, and here's what people can do to prepare. So talk about strategic. If any TA leader today is not prepared to adapt AI to help it augment and complement what you're delivering today, you're setting yourself up for never being in a position, ever being in a position to be strategic. So AI will complement the roadmap for a TA leader to be able to be more efficient and be more aligned to the business objectives.
Perfect. And then I think we talked earlier about this do more with less in the introduction, and I hear this a lot. I think it's actually quite beneficial for us, because we are being approached to offer advice on how to do more with less. And there's a lot of learnings that we've seen across our accounts from an offshore perspective, onshore, nearshore perspective, lots of different setups that we've seen that help people do more with less, and particularly from a cost perspective. But every TA leader tells us they're under pressure to do more. Faster fills, smaller budgets, fewer recruiters. How would you recommend they balance the need for speed and the quality that you just mentioned in your last response?
So do more with less is an incredible theme that we're hearing across every vertical, across every TA leader. And it's not about pushing your recruiters to work harder. It's really about the concept of do more with less should be about how do we complement the recruiters to be operationally efficient so that they can do what matters most to the business.
Yeah.
And if you think about it from that perspective, then being able to go out to market and select a partner who can help the internal recruiting team or the overall TA team be able to be freed up from administrative challenges, to be freed up from administrative duties and aspects, will certainly help these individuals become more efficient and ultimately drive greater return to the business itself.
Yeah.
So when we talk about doing more with less, we should talk about that from a perspective of the recruiters being able to actually doing more higher level related activities, and then being able to use technology or a partner to be able to tackle some of the administrative burdens that is being freed up from those resources.
Yeah, and I think what is really interesting about that is you keep coming back to the quality, right? So what matters most? And we're not asking them to do everything. It's about prioritization and understanding what's going to have the best impact for quality. And I think a lot of people would think that do more with less means that quality is impacted. It's always going to be impacted. But there are some smart ways that we're seeing that you can really focus on doing more with less, and even more so with the advent of AI.
Absolutely. So there's a very real tension today with that concept of speed versus quality. But those two concepts do not have to work against each other. If you plan appropriately and if you're an early adopter of AI, you can absolutely be able to do exactly that, do more with less output from a human, but complement it with systems that will allow them to be as efficient as possible. It really comes down to, in my opinion, the ability to marry technology, whether it's AI driven or not, with data to be able to have the insights so that we can help prioritize what are truly the goals of the program and be able to work that back to be able to have day over day goals for the team so that they are aligned to the business and that we can measure it and that we can ensure that it's in the framework of what the business objectives are.
All right, let me put you under a bit of pressure then. You talk about data and analytics, and they are becoming central. We're seeing much more conversation around making sure that everyone has data and analytics to hand and is able to make decisions. What role do you see that playing in shaping decision making and efficiencies as we move into the AI era?
So going back to the idea that there's recruiting metrics out there in the world that most organizations use them today, going back to the time to fill, things of that nature. That is a tactical execution driven concept, right? Are we fast? Do we have enough candidates? Do we have the right type of candidates? Do we have the high level quality of candidates? These are all tactical measurements. The ability to now weave in an AI concept into any talent acquisition environment is going to allow us to now be able to take that data and now interpret it, right? Allow us to get insights about what we should be doing in the next phase. So it's not just about taking data and saying, okay, we're too slow today. or we have a difficult rec. It's because we're not paying enough, right? Or because the market doesn't have enough resources. We can now use AI to complement the top of the funnel, where we can expand the reach of recruiters. We can 10x their capability by having AI weaved into their outbound marketing, right? We have the ability for AI to help complement what I'll call the connections and the reach of the recruiters as well. So we can literally have AI send messaging out to a huge population of people that would take so much time for the recruiters. You can weave AI into the top of the funnel. You can weave AI into what I'll call the operational aspect of managing the recruitment lifecycle. It's really about today, not necessarily working harder, but working more efficiently by having and augmenting systems in place to allow the entire team to be able to be more effective at what they do.
And so, what you're saying there is in terms of the decision-making process and the efficiencies, you've got to understand your process and where those pinch points are. Use the data to understand where is the most time being spent, where are the most laborious tasks, where is the highly administrative tasks that could be automated.
Yes.
And, I think that in itself is quite a large undertaking for some businesses who have largely just relied on looking at dashboards or so you've got to step into that process. And I think that's a really good starting point in terms of TA maturity. I think on the tech, you touched upon like lots of tools and AI being used. What would TA leaders need to prioritize to ensure that they get the cut through from the technology that they're using? And what do they need to be thinking about?
Well, so I think for a TA leader today, the biggest mistake they do is buying technology before they actually understand the problem.
Yeah.
And so there's an incredible amount of recruiting tech available right now in the marketplace. And they're all, to certain degrees, incredibly useful. But the issue right now is that there's not a clarity of purpose. So TA leaders are looking at these products without really understanding the root cause of their challenge, of their issue. So I would recommend first really defining what the challenge is, what the bottleneck is, what the problem is within the organization, and it could be at many layers of the recruitment lifecycle. And then making sure you're going out and finding a product that's fit for purpose.
Yeah.
And then number two, which is really important, is not just about buying the technology and thinking, hey, now all our problems are solved.
Yeah.
We now have to be able to go out and really have the ability to measure the output of the AI tool or the tool in general. How do you do that? You need to ensure integration and you need to ensure adoption. So if the user community is not going to adopt the tool, you're never going to have the ROI you want.
Yeah.
And integration is something that's really never taken into account when you're buying the tool. You think, okay, great, we're going to roll it out. It's going to start on Monday. Our problems are solved. You have to make sure you have a smart plan in place to integrate. And you absolutely have to make sure that you have the training and the buy-in of the user community to actually adopt the tool. And then finally, when you think about it, the insights that the tools will provide will allow you to get to the next gen of efficiency of what we're trying to drive towards.
Yeah. And you and I have sat in many of our executive team meetings discussing all of these tools. I could probably, there's hundreds we've seen, and different tools in different places. And I totally agree with you. And one of the things that really resonates with me and I would kind of give to our listeners is, it should elevate, not decorate, right? Like that is,
love that term.
That is a term that we have been thinking about and using to keep ourselves to check here at LevelUP. And I think that is absolutely essential. There are so many tools out there, not just from an AI perspective, that could decorate, look good, but don't have the cut through, as you said, and also going to create problems from an implementation, adoption. I don't want to make this sound like it's a massive task because, people want to move fast, but you can do this at speed if you work with partners or if you work with people who've already deployed these programs and understand. So that's a good introduction into innovation. We've talked a little bit about innovation. It would be remiss of us not to talk about how we're innovating. So I suppose let's dive into and introduce Ella. Do you want to tell us, our audience, a little bit about Ella and what that solution is?
So Ella is the top of the funnel answer to a huge problem in the market today. And we're really proud and excited to be able to roll this out into the marketplace. This is solving a problem right now that most organizations feel because they just can't touch every candidate that applies or is in the process for a potential interview. And what Ella does, it simply augments and provides the efficiency to allow every applicant to have a potential conversation and screening so that they can truly be judged against the role. Most organizations today, especially most recruiters, are going to be able to get the top 30 to 40 candidates into an evaluation process, a qualification process. With our agentic AI today, we're going to be able to go to market and tell, and with confidence know that every candidate who's in the potential interview process is going to be evaluated. We'll have a screening. And that's something that's exciting because we're going to solve the problem of the candidate pool not being properly vetted today.
And I think, as you've highlighted, the surging volumes are kind of exacerbated by the AI applications that we're seeing. Candidates have AI, right? Like, so why would they not? I mean, I remember us sitting in meetings with some TA leaders probably 18 months ago saying, no one will talk to a bot. No one ever talk to a bot. Well, nowadays, everyone is using bots all day. People are talking to ChatGPT, and other AI platforms are available. I think the interesting thing about Ella is with that surge of volumes, you're creating this again, doing more with less, and you've got to solve that problem, and Ella does that.
Absolutely, it addresses the surge of potential candidates. It allows us to do exactly that, do more with less, more work, more efficiency, and allow the recruiters to focus on other higher level activities within that recruitment lifecycle.
And talk to us a bit more about how your vision as leader of the business and having been involved in many talent conversations across the globe. What do you envisage AI changing in terms of candidate engagement? We home in on candidate engagement. How do you think AI is going to change that?
Well, so let's talk about candidate engagement from a macro perspective. The candidates who have a strong experience are typically the ones who either get the offer or they're typically the ones who get the offer and accept, right? Yeah. They're always going to have a positive outcome. That's ultimately what any candidate driving during the application process is, to be able to have an interview, receive an offer, and accept the position. What about the other 99% of the candidates who are not going to receive that offer for that role? And so the candidate engagement piece is incredibly critical today because it's all about the brand of the organization. You want to have a strong employer brand in the marketplace. And how you do that is ensuring that you are engaging the candidate within every step of the recruitment lifecycle. From the initial outreach all the way through to the final communication, which could be an offer or could be a communication that you're not right for this particular position, right?
Yeah.
So that, and everything in the middle, from the interview coordination, from the first interview to the final interview, it all requires a ability to have an orchestrated, planned communication strategy. So candidate engagement today, if left to the human recruiter, is going to be driven by activities and outcomes. If we augment AI into the recruitment ecosystem, engagement will now be sustained through a planned, orchestrated strategy that will allow the candidate to have greater visibility of where they stand in the status of the recruitment lifecycle, of where they are in that particular lifecycle, and the communication in regards to the disposition of wherever they are as well. So whether they're moving forward or whether or not, and the reasons why. That can all be augmented by an AI tool.
Yeah.
And again, it increases transparency, increases communication, it increases awareness, and it ultimately strengthens the brand of the employer.
And I want to home in on augment, right? What we have talked about, there's many conversations where some businesses are really looking for fast adoption, everything automate, everything AI. There are some that are saying, whoa, you still need the human touch. Talk to us about kind of where you think we should be preserving the human element across, TA teams.
I'll first say that I truly believe AI is not going to replace the human recruiter. There's always going to be a need to have a human touch in the recruitment lifecycle. AI is what I'll call the horsepower, the turbo to allow the recruitment team, the recruitment program to do more with less.
Yeah.
And so I see AI as a complement to any organization within the recruiting organization, where it's going to be able to take on the administrative, operational activities that again goes back to freeing up the recruiters to do higher level value communication, higher level value work. AI is a tool that's going to simply allow for greater efficiency and effectiveness through every stage of that recruitment lifecycle.
Brilliant. And I think what's been really exciting about where we are in our journey is that we did a lot of background work in understanding where the human element needs to be, whether it even needed to be there. We did a lot of research, we did a lot of that. And I think that that is still an ongoing question for many TA orgs, is whether they do or don't. And so that piece will continue to kind of swing the pendulum, I think, over time. Thinking about this approach, introducing new tools, becoming more efficient, trying to be more strategic than operational, requires a lot of change. Change management is a huge component of any of the success of this. As a leader, how would you encourage clients or even our own teams to embrace innovation while still staying disciplined in the process and strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I really believe that AI is just the latest reason why we should be embracing innovation. If you think about the world of talent acquisition, 20, 25 years ago, there was very immature CRM systems. And over the past 10 to 20 years, there's been a maturity stage. So I believe that at every phase of the journey within talent acquisition, technology is helping us become more efficient. So the ability for us to be willing to adapt and willing to change has occurred, and it's going to continue to occur. But now AI brings a new element, faster, more efficient. And ultimately, TA leaders have to be disciplined enough to recognize that wherever they are today can be elevated, can be pushed further heights if they're willing to look at a tool, recognize the value, and then go through the steps to be able to get that ROI.
Yeah, and I think, back to your earlier point, we've got to communicate the adoption and integration plan. We've got to really make sure that's solid, because that will help encourage anyone within our client teams, anyone within our own teams to be able to do that. All right, look, so we're coming to the end of our questions today. And so my final question to you is, what advice would you give to TA leaders who want to take their organization from operational today to strategic in the next 6 to 12 months?
It's a very good question. And I think the most important thing they can do is really be able to look at their organization and understand their current state. Right now, at this very moment where they are, I think they have to be able to look at their business objectives and ensure that they're solving a problem that's going to allow them to meet the goals of the organization. Then from there, I think it's in regards to the process, going back to the concept that we spoke about, that organizations today are very focused on metrics that allow them to measure time to fill, time to cost, time to cover. Mm-hmm. Those are execution-based metrics. And if we really want to be a strategic partner to the business, we've got to be able to continue to be disciplined to measure that, to keep that in a silo, because that's not the conversation that you want to have with the business. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to say, okay, what can we do to elevate the quality of the candidate? What can we do to elevate the experience of the entire recruitment program? And reach out to partners who are either going through this process today and learn their lessons, reach out to potential vendors who specialize in this, and be able to use them as subject matter experts to help your current organization go from where you are today to where you want to be. This journey cannot be done independently. You have to make sure that you're reaching out to folks who understand what you're trying to achieve. And so I'd say collaboration is incredibly important to ultimately getting to the outcomes that you want as a TA leader.
Thank you very much. And I think, look, your insights are so valuable. I say that because you've spent years in different rooms, in different clients, different orgs, and you have had that helicopter view, that holistic view.
Absolutely.
We both get to do that every day. It's the excitement of our jobs. To summarize the key takeaways from today's session, first of all, you need to know where you're at right now. If you don't know where you are right now, find some way to analyze that. Things like the TA maturity assessment model that we've launched that allows people to see where they are in terms of the maturity. So, if you don't have anything or don't have an access, there's a really simple tool on our website. Go and find the TA maturity assessment. Where are you at right now? Where do you score? Then you know where you need to apply. Have a look at the current process. Where can you augment rather than replace? And, that's your starting point. I think the other thing is that on the flip side, taking it up a level, it's only going to work if you tie it to the business outcomes. I truly believe that no TA leader or TA department or HR leader, whoever's looking after talent in the function, if you're hiring reactional to just fill roles based on jobs, you are never going to hit strategic TA function. If you don't know the impact of the hire, if you don't know how to impact the business goals, then that is the biggest gap. So I think the other takeaway from talking today is very much understanding, what are the business goals? What does the business need to achieve? And how does talent impact that? Mm-hmm. And it's, again, not for today, but it's another reason why, is it really quality of hire or is it impact of hire? I don't know. That's a debate that we've had many a times with many TA leaders, and I think it's a really important question. And then finally, in the middle of that spectrum, the other key takeaway is about making sure that you elevate, not decorate. Any tools or systems are going to have to elevate the whole process and take a helicopter view. So I think in the short time that we've spoken, we've covered quite a lot. I thought that was quite good. So I'd like to really thank you today, guys, for flying all the way to London. No, not really, not for this podcast, for being in London with me today. It's great to have you, and it's great to hear your thoughts and views. And of course, any of our listeners, if ever you want more on this, feel free to reach out to Curtis or I directly. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a great day.
Thank you for your time.